Good evening. Welcome to the Design Review Board meeting of March 23, 2023. The Design Review Board meeting is now called to order. Please silence all cell phones at this time. The Design Review Board meeting is being broadcast live on Glendale TV, viewable on Spectrum Cable Channel 6, and AT&T UVerse Channel 99. Meetings are also streamed live in high definition on the city's webpage, glendaleca.gov/live, on youtube.com/myglendale, and on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire devices using a free app called ScreenWeave and choosing Glendale TV from the menu. Meetings are also archived on the city's website for viewing at any time at www.glendaleca.gov/agendas. For public comments and questions during the meeting, please call 818-937-8100. City staff will be submitting the items and comments in real time to the appropriate person. Current Design Review Board agendas are available by visiting our website at glendaleca.gov. Records of decision for all projects will be posted online on the Planning Division's website. And please note that any appeal of a case heard today must be filed within 15 calendar days of the Design Review Board decision date, and the appeal application is also available online. In terms of a roll call, Board Member Lokarev.
Present.
Board Member Kasakian is absent this evening. Board Member Welch.
Present.
Board Member Simonian will be joining us shortly, and Chair Chagayan.
Present.
Reports regarding posting of the agenda. The agenda for the March 23rd, 2023 regular meeting of the Glendale Design Review Board was posted on the city's website on Thursday, March 16th, 2023, and on the bulletin board outside City Hall on Monday, March 20th, 2023. Approval of minutes. We have no minutes for this evening. Next up on the agenda item would be oral communications, and we do not have any speaker cards, and there are no callers. So that brings us to the board and commission member comments section. Are there any comments from the DRB board members? None?
None. No.
Next up would be old business. We have one project under old business, and we have 3 projects under the new business. So I can either turn the meeting over to Chair Chagayan or to Ms. Chloe Cuffle for her Design Review Board debut for her project at 1214 Allen Avenue.
Let's turn it over to Ms. Cuffle, please.
All right, good evening, board members. I'm Chloe Cuffle. I'm the case planner for 1214 Allen. The proposal is to construct a new 2,177 square foot single-family house. The subject site is in the Grandview neighborhood of West Glendale. It's south of Kenneth Road between Linden and Irving Avenues. The neighborhood primarily consists of 1- and 2-story single-family dwellings featuring an eclectic mix of architectural styles. The site is located in the R1 zone, that's low-density residential zone. The subject site is a 7,365 square foot lot that is occupied by a single family residence and a detached garage. Both were constructed in 1925. Glendale Historic Preservation Planner Casey Connolly wrote a staff historic evaluation determining that the project is not eligible for listing in the National, California, or Glendale registers. 2 alleys flank the property on the south and west sides of a public works dedication line encroaches 2 feet 6 inches into the property line at both sides. And there's an existing 6-foot tall CMU block wall along the perimeter of the property that the applicant intends to maintain, and we will revisit later. The applicant proposes to demolish the existing single-family residence and construct a new 2-story, 2,177 square foot single-family house. The existing detached garage will be partially demolished, reducing its size to 463 square foot and rebuilt to match the new primary dwelling, which has been designed in a contemporary style with prairie inspiration. The garage is at the rear of the property, and it's just outside the perimeter wall. It's accessed via the alleys and includes the required 20-foot driveway length. The proposal meets development standards, but we've recommended a condition that the applicant provide a detailed landscaping plan that shows that they'll meet the 50% live plant material requirement. We believe the proposal is appropriate to the neighborhood. The nearest two-story house is directly across the street, and this project is exempt from CEQA. We have the first floor plan here. Actually, I'm gonna go back, I'm sorry. The massing above, okay. Sorry, okay, the first floor plan. I have more to say about the second floor plan, which includes 3 balconies. There's a 100 square foot balcony at the front of the house facing Allen, and a 246 square foot balcony at the rear. These 2 balconies don't pose privacy concerns as they are appropriately set back and don't gaze into neighboring properties. However, a 3rd balcony off the laundry room on the west side of the site disrupts the flow of the roof. You can see it circled here. A condition is recommended to eliminate this feature and allow the roof to flow consistently from the front to the back of the facade. This area outlined in red is open to below where the living and dining area is, and we'll address it again when discussing the design. Here are the elevations. The building was thoughtfully designed with a mixture of colors and materials, including stucco, band courses, stone veneer, and low-pitch shingle roofing. These features help break up the massing, providing a compatible design with the 1- and 2-story dwellings in the vicinity. The house will feature casement and fixed aluminum windows with no grids, appropriate to the architectural style. Staff has a few recommendations for conditions that I would like to address here. The massing above the front door is disproportionate to the rest of the house. A condition is recommended to reduce the height at the 2nd floor volume above the front door and revise the window design to provide better proportions. This would also allow for greater visibility of that lovely big roof eave above it. The front door does not appear to have structural capacity and is inconsistent with the overall design. Staff recommends that the applicant provide a new door. Uh-oh, am I losing? Seem to be losing power with my clicker. Thank you, okay. Yeah, it is. It's the circled red section.
Oh, elevations.
Yes. Yes. The course bands that wrap from the north to the east elevation are a nice architectural feature, but they terminate awkwardly before the downspout. So a condition is recommended to adjust that endpoint. We have a section drawing here that shows the ceiling height at the 2nd floor entry area where we're suggesting lowering the height, and perhaps the architect could speak more to that as well. These renderings show the overall site, including the garage, pool, and patios. The house is contemporary in style and has many prairie features, including a low-pitched hipped roof, varied materials. Earlier, I mentioned the small balcony on the western side. The laundry room balcony is especially visible here with the hip form interrupting the natural form that roof would take. Also visible here is the existing CMU block wall along the perimeter of the property, ending just before the detached garage. A condition has been recommended to redesign this wall in a more compatible style. Here are the materials provided. The applicant plans to use stucco, precast concrete, siding, and stone veneers. And the precast concrete will be used for windowsills and the course bands. Staff is recommending approval, but we would like the board to consider the following conditions: reducing the height of the 2nd floor volume above the front door and revising the window design for better proportions, revising the drawings to specify a functional front door that better matches the overall style for staff review and approval, Eliminate the hipped roof projection at the west facade over the laundry room balcony to allow the roof to flow consistently from the front to the back of this facade. Revise the drawings to include a breakdown calculation of landscaping ratio to show compliance with zoning code. Revise the drawings to provide a better termination point for the band courses that wrap from the north to the east elevations. Condition 6 should be removed as the applicant is not proposing foam and stucco moldings. And 7, revise the design of the perimeter wall to make it more compatible with the design of the house and the garage. And all the public comments that we've received have been provided to the board already. So this concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Cuffle. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, just clarification. So for the condition about the roof form above the laundry room,
Yeah.
we're not suggesting that they have to remove the balcony. It's
No.
really just to have the roof match. You know, they can
Correct.
still have a balcony if they want, but it's the roof form that's the.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
I do have a question as well. On your chart, and I believe you sent an update on this, but the average height of the properties on the block,
Yeah.
can you tell me what that is?
Let me see. I'm actually not sure that I have the average height right in front of me.
Yeah, in general, we don't have heights. It's almost,
Or sorry, story would be sufficient.
stories.
Yeah.
Stories, we can have, yes, for stories, what we could do is we can take a look and bring up we can bring up the neighborhood survey in just a moment.
Okay.
I also actually have a slide that shows the nearest two-story houses, if that would be helpful
Okay.
to see.
in general, we don't put an average of stories, because if you have a mix of 1 and 2 stories and we say it's an average of 1.3, it doesn't mean anything.
Right. Yeah, I was just referencing the neighborhood
Sure.
survey table that you have there.
Yeah,
and
this-
there's
this
a
slide
blank.
shows it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So the slide that is up on the screen right now indicates the location of the 2 stories within the area.
Correct.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Okay, are there any other questions for staff?
No.
No? Then I guess we open it, a public forum. Ara Amian?
Yes, good evening. My name is Zara Amyan. I'm the applicant for this project and also the designer. So, in a few words, we were trying to create more, let's say it's not a contemporary style, it's more prairie style house. So we're trying to use details and a few things from the prairie style design to create the house in that style. And because of that, we'll use this area above the entry door with the flat roof. Actually, I tried to reduce the height of that area, but can you please show on the screen the section AA? It's on the A7. Yes. As you can see, the flat roof above the entry area where we have the area open to above. And once we're reducing that the height, that will be lower than the doors elevation on the second floor. And I don't know, in my opinion, that will be a problem, both for the construction process and also visually, it's not so, I don't know, in my opinion, it's not, better to keep like this. And also the height of the entrance door. If you will go to A5, you can see. Oh, I see. We can use renderings also. We're using the two details above the entry door with the number of one of them, and doors goes all the way up to the lower detail. Once I lower the door, then we will have, I don't know, the look is more clear like this. Once we lower the door, then we will have also the stripe of the stucco above the door before the detail. So also in my opinion, that's this more clear look than with the lower entry door.
Just to clarify, we didn't have a condition for the height of the entry door, just other aspects of it.
Okay, so regarding the roof above the balcony from the laundry, it's possible, it's doable. We can continue as a one roof. It's not a big problem. But since we have alley from that side, there is no neighbors from that side, so it's acceptable to change the roof and create one roof on that side, keeping the balcony, of course. So we will develop the garage design as we discussed before, and the fences design, the fence wall design, to match the design for the house. Yeah, and pretty much that's all, I think.
Okay, great. Thank you. Do we have any questions for the applicant?
So I think that the question that I have is relating to well, I guess generally speaking, I think you've answered most of my questions here, but this roof form above that front door section, it's proposed to have just a completely flat roof, not a parapet or anything like that?
Without parapets.
Okay, and so it'll have, how will you deal with the seams of that as it touches the stucco, or are you intending to have stucco across the whole top or something?
No, we will use torch down roof there, and
Okay.
we'll use hidden downspouts
Okay.
to remove the water from that area.
Okay.
It will be inside of the wall,
Okay,
not visible.
okay, so will there be a collection point for these hidden downspouts? Okay.
It's not visible from of course, from the street, but yes, we have 2 points there that we can remove water from both sides.
Okay. And it looks like there's these little planters there, because I saw some of the pictures had some plants in them. Are they intended to be actual planters with plants?
We decided to remove planters from that
Okay.
areas, yeah, because
But there'll still be those 3 sort of design elements?
yeah, it's
those...
more design details, design
Okay.
elements, yeah.
Okay.
We're just, it's also details from Prairie Style, so we just want to use that to create the accents for the entrance area.
And if we were to condition lowering that roof form and readjusting the windows, do you have any thoughts about how you might do that? Might you have other windows that are on the main plane of the house above that lowered portion?
Yes, sure. We can, let's say, reduce the. We can have 2 windows instead of 3. We can, if we lower that, we can use same sloped roof, not the flat roof, but
Like a hipped roof on it?
yeah.
Okay.
But that will be another style.
Yeah.
Let's say it's also not Prairie Style.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thanks.
Did you have any questions?
No, thank you.
I don't think I did either. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any callers?
We have no callers. No callers. And just to remind the board, we received a number of emails. I believe Ms. Cuffle already mentioned it. From the neighborhood, I believe a total of 5 emails have been received, all in opposition. And those
Yes.
emails were forwarded on to the board members
Yes,
prior
and
to the hearing.
I think we can all acknowledge that we received those emails.
Great. And then just to make sure everyone is aware who are viewing live from the TV, this case was scheduled on March the 9th, and due to a noticing issue, it was then continued to today. So there were double notices that were sent out to the property owners and the occupants within the 500-foot radius. So the hearing, obviously, is being held today.
Yes. Actually, if I can ask one clarifying question, I believe a couple of the emails stated February 9th. Was that just an error in printing?
Yeah, I guess it was a clerical error. The original hearing date was March 9th, and the sign posting and the website posting both said March 9th, but the notices that went to the public said February 9th. So that's why we
Understood.
pushed it.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you for clarifying. Okay, if we have no callers and no other questions, I think we can close the public hearing and open for deliberations. Who'd like to start us off? Mr. Welsh, or?
Okay, thank you. Welcome, Ms. Cuffle. Good report. I appreciate that. Generally speaking, I think that your comments and recommendations here are pretty spot on. The only thing that I would supplement it with is for the front door, it does look like the side lights have some divided lights, and I think that those are not quite right either. So I think designing the whole, door with the side lights and taking a whole look at that, I think would be appropriate. But generally speaking, I think the design is nicely done. It's too bad we didn't hear about it 2 weeks ago when we had another prairie-style house on the agenda at the same time.
We thought this might be a silver lining. We weren't sure.
But in any case, I think it's, the one massing element that I think the staff commented upon is that front door, which I think that if it was reduced down, I think it would be more appropriate. And I think that would be also more in keeping with a prairie style as well. So I agree with that staff's recommendation on that. I'm not sure where the balance is, and I think we can probably just defer to staff on deciding that, because if you bring it down too low, then you kind of eliminate the opportunity to have windows, and maybe that creates an opportunity to create a double set of windows above and in the mass, and I'm not sure how that would work, but so I think we can defer to staff to work with them on that. I concur with the applicant's decision to not have planters there. I think planters that are really inaccessible kind of make it difficult. So just treating them as design elements, I think, is appropriate. I do acknowledge this is largely a one-story neighborhood, but as we have heard many, many times, there's no law against a two-story house in a one-story predominant neighborhood. It's just that it has to be done carefully and, considerately for the neighborhood. The size of this house at only about 2,200 square feet is not overly scaled. I don't think that it's too monstrous. I think the reason why the second floor is a little bit bigger is because you have, a more condensed space in the first floor, so you have this big patio. I get that. That's sort of the goal in our California lifestyle, is to have a nice big outdoor space. So I'm okay with that. I think that if we can modulate that second story above the front entranceway, that will peel back that massing away from that corner where it's closest to the neighbors to the left side, And otherwise, I'm okay with that. I think it's good. So those are my comments.
Great. Board Member Lockeroff?
Okay, thank you to the applicant and also staff. I also agree with several of your conditions. I agree that, you know, two-story residences aren't out of the question. I do feel like it feels a little bit massive as it is, and I do think a lot of these conditions are going to help address that. In particular, I feel when you're facing the structure, the left side of the building where the entrance is, that does make it feel much more massive. And so I do think that condition of lowering the roof there is good. And in fact, if it could be lowered to be in line with the other roof, that would be, it would accentuate the horizontality and help with that massing. In fact, it might be a consideration, but continuing the dark band on the top, that would be consistent with prairie style, and it would help, again, with reducing the massing, and that can continue around the house as a whole to really help.
You're referring to the top band of the
Top
balcony.
band, the balcony, how it's darker
got it,
there.
yeah,
I really think that should continue across, and it'll break down the massing. And I also think a condition to minimize the door would be good too. When you're working with those proportions of that new height of the stairwell. And I do think there's opportunity now, once you do have that height, like you were mentioning, to have windows above that, up high in the stairwell as well. I mean, you could still have them. And let's see what else. So yeah, I think with those conditions, I think it'll break it down, because I hear the neighborhood's concerns going by. It did seem big, but I think that those things would help to bring down the scale a lot. Let's see. Otherwise, yeah, I was in agreement with the conditions. And then also, again, with that left side, just trying to make the design more cohesive. You know, that is one of our guidelines, is to have a cohesive design. And I feel like the left side of the building wasn't in keeping with the right. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and I pretty much concur with my fellow board members. I agree about the door, especially the side lights. I think maybe lowering it, maybe even widening the door slightly and limiting yourself to one side of glass, and again, without it being with the mullions would help. I like your idea of probably even eliminating the bulk above the doorway, because when I think prairie style, I think more horizontal as well. So I think that's what's fighting this design right now, is just the fact that there's two masses of verticality up front. And otherwise, I think holistically, it's very nicely designed. But you do have to work on that left-hand side a bit to help reduce the mass from the street-facing side. And I'm not sure if also the balcony right outside the main bedroom on the second level, it felt a little boxy to me. So I'm not sure if, you know, stepping that in would help with the mass of that. But again, I think it needs to be done holistically. So if you take another approach, taking our comments into consideration, it will, and I'm sure staff will help and figure that out, what the best solution is there. But all in all, I am in favor of approving the project with the conditions stated. Thank you.
So, Mr. Platt, before I make a motion to approve it with conditions, do you want to ask any questions about the conditions?
I do. It sounded like there were a couple of potential new conditions that I want to just clarify. Board Member Lockeroff, when you mentioned, oh, I thought it's on. Yeah? Why don't we? Hi. Yeah. Okay. I'll speak into the mic. I won't look at you guys. I mean, you all, trying to change my ways. We're talking, there's a discussion about aligning the volume above the door. When we lower that, you mentioned aligning it with another roof, and I wasn't sure.
I think she
Is that
was referring
balcony?
to the balcony
balcony
element on the
is-
right-hand
yeah.
side.
Oh, okay.
Correct.
The top of that,
Okay.
So that band would be
Guardrail.
continuous, yeah,
Okay.
and more horizontal.
And could that, I'm only anticipating that that's not much height there, and I'm not sure how that space will work on the inside. Is that kind of an idea as part of the overall change, or is that a condition?
I was looking at this section, and it looked like it might be feasible. It's going to be a close call, so.
No, I agree, that would be a nice height to have it
Right.
at, so.
Yeah, so I
Okay,
think
so-
you could work with staff to just have a consistent height. One might go up slightly and one come down a little.
Okay, well, what we could do is write that condition to lower the volume, if possible, to match the height of the
Right.
balcony railing.
Correct.
Another one was continuing the dark band around the sides. I wasn't sure, is that under the eave, or is that at could we get the rendering back up? I thought it might be the horizontal railing at the balcony
No,
on the front.
the dark portion of the facade in the upper right-hand corner on the balcony. Once,
You can just drag it over. Now it seems like the
I think
mic
it's
is
where
too
the
loud.
second floor, there's a different color.
There's a different- it's just
of the
coloration
walls
of the
there on
second floor.
So it's a little darker, that
Right.
helps set it back a little
Right.
bit.
Okay,
Right.
I should wear my glasses when I come here. I wasn't sure if that was a shadow line or if that was an actual color, but if you
It's-
guys tell me it's a color.
It's a
yeah, it's a
Color.
color, it's brown, right.
Continue that around under the eave.
Under the eave is particularly once the left side is lowered, I think it's going to really break down the massing.
Okay, so we'll take care of both of those. And then, Board Member Chagayan, when you mentioned the balcony being boxy, is that the rear?
no, it's actually the front one. But again, I think if we're resolving the issues on the left-hand side, it might help just
Yeah, it'll probably
read better,
balance
yep.
out. Okay, so I won't keep that one. And otherwise, we heard that you support the staff conditions, and that the front door, in particular, along with the redesign, it sounds like you want it to be lower, and certainly no grids in any of those side lights or the door.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And I don't know that we mentioned it, but I also agree with staff's condition regarding the landscape, just providing more information. It is particularly in the front, I thought more trees or, just to work with staff on that. Thank
Okay,
you.
great.
Okay, so with that readback of conditions, I move to approve the project with those conditions.
I second.
Would you like to do the roll call, or would you like me to? All right. Roll call, Board Member Lockeroff,
Yes.
Board Member Welch,
Yes.
and Chair Chagayan.
Yes,
The motion passes 3-0. Thank you.
thank you.
And next up, we have new business. And let the record show that Board Member Simonian is able to
Welcome.
join us.
Oh, the name.
Do you want to sit in your chair?
Yeah.
We're mixing it up.
I'm messing with your head.
And now, under new business, first item is actually a multifamily residential project, and we have Ms. Sadie Gropin giving staff presentation. That. And this is where the.
All right. Good evening, members of the board and members of the public. My name is Sadie Gropin, and I'm the case planner for this project. The case number is PDR 000508, 2022, and the project site is located at 1534 to 1538 East Broadway. The project site is comprised of a total of 15,000 square feet with 2 rectangular shaped lots located in the R2250 zone. The existing site features a single-family residence constructed in 1925 and a 2-unit multifamily residence constructed in 1937 with detached garages that would be demolished as part of the proposal. The property does not appear to meet any criteria for listing on any national, state, or local register for historic resources and is not considered a historic resource under CEQA. This is the street view of the existing site. The applicant is proposing to construct a 2-story, 8-unit, 22,108 square foot residential condominium building and a semi-subterranean garage with 21 parking spaces. The project is exempt from further CEQA review under a Class 32 infill development project exemption pursuant to state CEQA guidelines section 15332 because it meets all the conditions for infill development projects. Additionally, as it is a condominium project, it does not require inclusionary zoning ordinance housing requirements. Overall, the site planning is appropriate with the new building footprint following the general shape of the lot and complementing the surrounding area. The driveway access from East Broadway follows the pattern of similar buildings in the area, and the exposure of the garage at the front is softened by the downsloping topography and landscape planters at the sides and top of the garage entry. The interior courtyard and rear yard provides common open space area, and residential units are screened with the use of drought-tolerant landscaping, patios, and fencing. Conditions are proposed to provide additional common open space at the interior or side yards, and to revise the drawings to indicate the location of the HVAC compressors. The mass and scale is appropriate considering the predominant development pattern of 2- and 3-story multifamily buildings located within its vicinity. The landscaping at the front yard reduces the building's mass as viewed from East Broadway. The flat roof form with parapets and a variety of roof heights is appropriate to the contemporary design concept. However, a consideration for the board was included to incorporate pitched roofs at the areas with the parapets to provide some visual interest at the second floor. For reference, the roof plan is provided, illustrating the flat roof forms where pitched roofs may be considered at the parapets. The semi-subterranean garage will contain 21 parking spaces and will be accessible from East Broadway. The garage also provides pedestrian access to the interior courtyard and the rear yard. Drought-tolerant landscaping is proposed around the front, rear, and side yards and the interior courtyard. And for reference, this is the image of the proposed first floor plan. The interior courtyard provides direct access to each unit and the garage. This is an image of the proposed second floor plan. As shown, both the proposed first and second floor plans incorporate private open space through balconies and patios. The design and detailing are appropriate with the use of materials and finishes that reinforce the design of the building. The location of the exterior pedestrian gate as an entryway is integrated into the design. The driveway and walkway will have decorative pavement appropriate to the design concept. The proposed materials are high quality and include smooth stucco, standing seam trim, brick, aluminum downspouts, iron railings, fiberglass sliding doors and windows, an aluminum pedestrian gate, and cylindrical sconces. And no public comments have been received, and staff is recommending approval of the project with the 4 conditions and consideration contained in the staff report. And that concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gropin. Do we have any questions for staff?
Could we pull up the roof plan again? And I just want to get a little bit more clarification in terms of where you're talking about adding some sloped roof versus flat roofs.
So largely, it would be at the second floor towards the front. It's probably easier to see in the elevations, so if
Okay.
I can pull that up
Pull that up,
for
yes.
you. So at the top, the one shown at the top, the second floor, you can see towards the interior of the courtyard at that section.
So basically, are you talking about the roof forms above where there's some sliding doors and little balconies with those
Correct.
roofs above there? So basically, just putting a little angle on them, is that what you're thinking? Instead of just
Exactly.
having a flat, just some angle on it?
Mhm.
Okay. All right. And then you also suggested trying to add some more interior open space, public open space, or common open space, I should say, in the interior courtyard. I mean, I'll ask the applicant about that, but do you have any thinking about how you could accomplish that?
So there is some room at the side that could be used, at each side yard, that could be used for common open space. The reasoning behind that, and I put that in the staff report, was because at the rear, the only access point is from the garage, so it doesn't provide direct access from from all of the units. So at the side yard, it becomes a little bit more usable for those other units. So again, at each side yard versus just the rear.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for staff?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Ms.
Sure.
Locker.
Just a general question regarding the parking. I was noticing there's a lot of parking, and I didn't know if it was based on calculation, exactly what they require, or was it above in any way?
It's the exact requirement,
Exact.
actually.
Yeah, okay,
So it's a
perfect.
total of 21 parking spaces, and that's what code
Okay.
requires.
Gotcha, right. And then the other thing, this is not necessarily in our purview, but I just would love a clarification on this, is when is the applicant notified? There have been some code changes in terms of requiring the units to be all electric, for instance, and do you notify them at this stage, or is that something that when they're in plan check?
That's not something that I
It's not in our purview, I realize. I just
am
wanted to
aware
bring
of.
that up so that, yeah, the applicant's aware.
Thank you, Board Member Lockeroff. Yes, the REACH codes are in effect, and I believe the
Right.
building and safety staff will be notifying that, but as a
Okay.
courtesy, I think you
It's
raise
probably
a wonderful
great-
suggestions to
right.
have planning.
I think it would be
Exactly.
great at this point because it is, the REACH code's important to be aware of. So,
Exactly.
thank you.
And so we will make note of it and include it as possibly as part of our application process.
Perfect,
So that
thank
people are
you.
aware.
Great.
Thank you. Board Member Simonian.
Yes, I just wanted to follow up on the comment earlier where I believe you were stating, and that's the way it certainly seems, is there's no access to the common open area at the rear.
Your mic.
Sorry. Just want to follow up with a question, I guess. You indicated, and it so seems that there's no direct access from all the units to the rear common open space, except for really from the garage coming up. And so I noticed there's no elevator here, but there's a lift. And so the lift, let's say, brings up a disabled person to the ground level. And let's say that person wants to go to the common open space, how would they get there from the interior courtyard?
Are you asking how they would get from the interior courtyard to the rear common
Yes.
open space?
Yes.
So it would likely be through that garage. So, and I do want to clarify that the common open space in the courtyard, it actually meets code requirements. So it is sufficient to meeting that standard for code.
Oh, I
It's
see.
just a suggestion because it was included as part of the plan to extend the common open space to the rear or to the side yards. But just going back to what I'm saying, it is meeting code required standards for the interior courtyard.
It would be in addition to.
Correct.
But I think Board Member Simonian's point still stands.
It still
that
stands.
Yeah,
Correct.
But
you can't get access to the rear as a
Okay.
disabled
And it may be
person.
something the applicant would like to clarify as well.
Right.
And so if I'm looking at the sheet 2.0, which is common open space layout, and the required common open space. Okay, so can you walk us through the common open space requirements and then also the additional common open space requirements and how that kind of comes
So-
together on this project?
The additional the additional open space requirement, it is 1,100 square feet of required additional open space, and that's because of the 90-foot wide lot. And the proposed is 1,109 square feet, so they are meeting that additional open space. The private outdoor space, I won't really discuss unless you want me to. So let me move to common outdoor space. The required is 1,600 square foot, and the proposed is 1,729 square feet. So you can see, if you look at the plan related to the common outdoor space, they are providing that 1,109 in addition to the additional outdoor space is 1,109, and then they're also providing the common outdoor space of 1,173 in the interior courtyard, as well as what is in the rear, which I believe is 556 square feet. So they are surpassing the requirement that code asks for, so I hope that explains it a little bit more of how
I
it,
see.
the
So
it's
the
broken down.
combination of additional open space and the courtyard space, which is mostly common open space,
Mhm.
the sum of which satisfies the 1,600 square feet.
The actual satisfying of that 1,600 is just that where it says interior courtyard, that 1,173 square feet. So it's not the sum, it's actually each part already satisfies it.
But that's my question. So if the requirement is 1,600 square feet, but the crosshatch portion of the interior courtyard, which is 100,
Oh, I'm sorry. To
1,173.
clarify,
Yeah.
the rear, you're correct. The rear courtyard will need to be included in the common outdoor space. That was my mistake. So you're
Okay,
correct.
so in order to meet the common open space requirements, which need to be minimum of 1,600 square feet, applicant is proposing 1,729, of which 556 square
at the
feet
rear?
Is at
are
the rear.
inaccessible at the moment, except from the garage with stairs.
That's correct. So that is why at each side yard, there is the recommendation of adding common outdoor space.
And staff is recommending some sort of connectivity between the interior courtyard.
That would be ideal. There is access from the front yard to the side yards, but currently the recommendation is just to expand upon the side yards.
Well,
Can I interject, because I'm confused. I didn't realize, or I didn't think that there were stairs from the garage to the outdoor space at the rear. Are there stairs? Or does it open straight onto that patio?
There are,
It looks like just the patio.
it opens straight onto the patio. Let me go back to the plans. Let me see.
The only other way is from the front, I guess, to the sidewalk. But yeah, from the garage, it looks like it's just to the center courtyard.
So there are no stair access to the rear. The only access is through the east and west,
Or through the garage?
or through,
Or through the garage or the rec room? In the garage, there's a rec room as well, which I assume the rec room is a common rec room accessible to all the tenants in the building?
but it
It's
would
a
have to
common
be
rec
open
room.
to the sky.
Rec room's not open space.
That's right,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's just it's just how you access it.
To clarify, there's access, so just to give an overview, access from the rec room and from the garage itself to the rear common outdoor space. And then, like I said, the interior courtyard can be accessed from that garage as well. So,
Can you pull up the plan? Actually, I think it would make sense to pull up just sheet 3.1. or three- Maybe a site plan?
2.0?
Oh,
okay, let's.
It's
So
on
the-
our screen now.
This is the site plan. I I don't believe the site plan fully illustrates what we're discussing. If you, the easiest, it is on sheet A 2.0, so you can see where the open space layout plan. Let me find one that's better.
the open space layout is sheet 2.0 on the left side.
And the garage plan might be a little bit more illustrative of this. Let's go to that. So I've pulled up the garage plan, which is sheet A 3.0. So you can see where the access points are to the rear yard. And then you also can see where the chairlift and stairs are for the interior courtyard.
I think the sections or the elevations help clarify, so the back of the garage is at grade.
Correct.
So you have access from the garage straight to the open space out there. That's a little bit more
Okay.
clarifying, I think. So you would have to go through,
So in other words, if we pull up sheet 3.0, at the rear of the garage, next to parking spot number 16 is an exit door. If you
Yep.
go out that door, you're at the rear common
You're
open
at-
space?
right.
Yes, yes.
Unusual, but okay.
okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Any additional questions for staff? No? Okay. Then we can open the public hearing or forum. Mr. Matt Holland, welcome.
Greetings, everyone. I just wanted to clarify, I think while we're on that subject.
Sorry, if you can state your name and,
Oh, sure. Matt Holland, I'm the owner and one of the applicants, I believe. Maybe shed some additional light on the access to the common open space in the back. You are right, the garage offers access to the common outdoor space. All of that access would be ADA compliant from a slope standpoint. Also, I don't know if you saw it or not, but there is a chairlift leading from the interior courtyard down into a corridor that would lead you to the rec room that would, eventually allow you to access that common open space. But I think the idea is to have the common open space in the rear of the building connected with the rec room. It would be much more compatible to have, those next to each other. You could have a birthday party inside and maybe have the kids playing outside or vice versa or something like that, as opposed to having it in the side yard that would lend itself much more to some of the private space than it would to the common. So that's what I've got to say about that. Were there any other questions that might be clarified by us?
Sure.
Madam Chair, I do have one question. Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah.
It certainly does shed more light on it. Sheet 2.0 indicates the rear south-facing common open space as 556 square feet. And when I look at and I'm trying to figure out if there's any encroachments on the second floor onto that common open space. Or is that whole area basically common open space, or are there any encroachments onto it as a balconies, et cetera?
It might be helpful if we had
I think it's 3.1 is the second level plan, and then 2.0 is the ground level plan.
I believe some of the balconies did.
Yes, it does appear
Plans, if
the
you-
balconies encroach.
If you look at A 4.0, you'll see that there's an overlay on the,
Because I'm looking at the first floor plan on sheet 3.1, and there's private patios, which encroach onto that rear open space, and in which case that area wouldn't be a rectangle as hatched, it would be carved out. And I'm wondering
I want to speak to that.
how that would affect that square footage, because you would need minimum 10 feet.
I think we have the common and private delineated on one of these sheets, don't we?
And just so you know, I'm going through all this because it is a code requirement, and so it's going to make a difference during
Yep.
plan check, et cetera.
You're talking about, sorry, while we're trying to find this, you're talking about the private encroaching into the public?
Yeah,
Or
in other
common?
words, just
common
on
road.
that floor plan, on the right side, there's private patios, and it just seems as though those private patios are counted towards the common open space.
Since Ms. Gropin said they're exceeding their common open space requirements, we could, after, if this is your direction, recalculate the rear minus the overhang encroachments and see if that number still meets code. If it doesn't, they're gonna have to change something else.
I have
so
a
we're
feeling they're gonna be
compliant.
shy of it, because there's two patios, not 10 feet between them.
It's
Yeah,
possible.
okay.
Okay, I know we did that a little backwards and started with questions, but if you'd like to go ahead and present.
Yeah, I don't think I have any notes that city didn't cover. We're staying far below, or 3 or 4 feet, 3.5 feet below the allowable height. We're also not pursuing any density incentives, which I think really helped us kind of manage and keep the floor plans and the massing of the building flexible. And that really helped create a favorable, or a number of favorable floor plans. I think that's about it. I think we've covered it, yeah.
Okay,
okay.
Go
so
ahead.
Just a question on the slope roofs that were mentioned there, you know,
Yeah.
where I assume that those sort of flat portions are standing seam metal roofs there with some cant to them?
Sure, so all the water mitigation has been addressed. I think, there's some elements of standing seam where you can see the top portions of the roof. There are small parapets in places that would hide, the large swaths of torch-down roofing. But I think what we're after is that more traditional modernist look where you've got perfectly horizontal roof lines.
So is that your preference, to keep them flat as
Yeah,
opposed
that would be
to?
that would be our preference, yeah.
Okay. Okay, that was my question.
okay,
That's all I've got.
okay. Do we have any other questions for Mr. Holland? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any callers?
do.
Okay,
We have one caller this evening, Ms. Lilia Sapanian. Lilia Sapanian, you're live on the air with the Design Review Board.
Hi. My question regarding this project is parking. I live on Car Drive, which is pretty much the only parking available to the new residents of that project. There's no other street parking on Broadway. And 21 parking spaces for 8 units, I don't think that's going to be enough. And are the guest parkings allotted? Because I think that all the extra cars will be parking in my street. And as it is, we've approached the city for a permit for our street, and they didn't give us one. So how's that going to affect our residents on Car Drive?
Ms. Sapanian, are you asking for clarification in regards to the parking, or is this a comment to the board?
Well, it's both, actually. I'm just wondering, 21 parking spaces, do they include their guest parking spaces as well, or it's just for the residents? Because anybody who visits this 8-unit building will be parking on my street, which is Car Drive. So I'm just wondering
It does,
what's considered for that.
in response to that question, it does include guest parking as is required by code. There are a total of 2 guest parking spaces. So there are 19 that are required plus the 2 additional guest parking spaces.
For 8-unit building?
That is what is required by code.
Okay. So then I guess my next, then you can take my question as a comment to the board that that's going to impact Car Drive, parking on Car Drive. Because I can tell you that's not enough parking.
Thank you. We will take that comment into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
There are no other callers this evening for this project.
Okay, great. Time for rebuttal? Oh, yes,
Yes, in fact, I had a question, so it might make sense to get the architect.
sure, yes. If Mr. Holland wouldn't mind coming back up?
And just as a clarification on this one item, do you know what the rear setback is? Because on one document it says 9 feet, on another one it says minimum 10'6". Do you happen to know what the rear setback is on the ground level?
Just to clarify, I'm the owner and the applicant. I don't believe I'm the designer. But I might be able to answer your question. Do you have we're talking about something that might show up on the site plan?
Correct.
If we can we pull
We
up the
do
site
not
plan?
have the rear setback plans on here. I can take a look.
We have the site plan with us.
It looks like it goes from 10'1" to 11 feet,
And this is the
on
problem.
the site plan at least.
But on the first floor plan, it says 9 foot.
Katie?
On the
Yes. You know,
first
we're
floor plan.
Right now, we're,
On sheet A3.1 at the left, it says 9 foot rear yard setback.
Yeah, and then you see the dashed, oh, no, that's the second floor
And then
above
on the
it.
second
Yeah.
floor,
I think if we look at the site plan, it should depict the rear yard setback. I think on
the site plan?
2.0?
you're referencing A31 should be the setback of the building to the property line.
correct.
From
And
that-
it says 9 there, but in actuality, that might be a typo, might be more. That's why I'm asking.
And you're referring to the site plan that's on the screen right now, or?
It could be. Yeah, we can clarify that.
Well, maybe we don't want to take any more time on this one item. It's a pretty important item, but maybe you guys could try to sort that out.
If I can
Dimension, if you have a
just
CAD file.
clarify for the applicant, there is a site setback layout plan on sheet A 2.1. I believe these are the correct setbacks, so please refer to that.
All right, so if these are correct, and A 2.1 depicts a first floor rear setback of 9'8", then it doesn't meet the minimum 10-foot requirements of a common open space. So I'm trying to help them by saying, is that a typo?
Since we have several issues that are zoning rather than design issues, we will ensure before this project is approved that we make,
Because
that
it
the
makes a
drawings are
difference how we
correct.
lay it out
Oh,
as
of
far as
course.
access.
No, I'm not trying to make light of the point, but it's a zoning issue that we'll just make sure all the numbers are correct before we move forward.
Right.
Okay. And is there anything you wanted to say to address the caller that called in about the parking?
I sympathize with her, but like Sadie said, we're providing the required amount of parking, and What else can I say to that? Should be better than the current situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So I guess we can close the public hearing and open for deliberation. Ms. Lockeriff, would you like to lead
Sure.
us?
Just thank you to the applicant and also to staff. It's been a helpful conversation to understand the common open space. I do think, like, as you mentioned, this is something that'll get resolved with zoning staff. Aside from that, the common outdoor space challenges, I think that the design itself is very nice, and I love the aesthetic. It's consistent. Great materials are being used. I think for me, the flat roof as is nice. I don't feel a pitched roof is required. I think that just, if you have opportunity as you investigate this open space, more trees in the middle, it greatly improves property value and the lives of your tenants. Again, great balance and a lot of articulation. I appreciate the use of the brick on the first floor and a lighter color on the second floor. And that's it. I would be on board with approving this with conditions, in particular the condition that the zoning open space needs to be worked out. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Lockeriff. Board Member Simonian?
Overall, I think it's well designed. I don't have particular issues with the language of the design. I also concur that flat roof motif works, and if that's your preference, it certainly has been integrated into the design well. Thank you for going through the explanations as to how the common open space fits into the overall project. Having the rec room in the basement, because you have a double wide lot, in which case, you're only putting 8 units, so there's a lot of parking garage to work with, which does allow for this unique connectivity with a rec room on the basement. And I think that's positive, because you're going right into the rear common open space, so that is a good thing. At the same time, the additional common open space that you're burdened with because of the double lot is being forced inside the courtyard, which again is not a bad thing considering the courtyard, and it brings vegetation and landscaping into the middle. I do think that some way or another, that common open space that you're proposing of 1,700 square feet is going to get reduced by the time we're done with all the calculations, because even sheet 4.6, your renderings depict patios, balconies in the rear setback. And so it's got to be open to the sky. There's got to be 10 feet of clearance between those balconies for even the space below to count, assuming it's 10 foot deep. And so that is going to make an impact on the overall site plan of how you're able to make that work. I encourage you, as you're going through this exercise, to be able to have some sort of connectivity between the interior courtyard and the rear, if possible, because I think that would help. If not, frankly, kind of defeats the purpose, although it is a unique situation with the rec room at the bottom. So I'm not sure how this will work itself out, but I'm confident staff will work with you on it. But overall, I support the project. I don't have any issues with the parking. I mean, 21 parking spots for 8 units, that's per code, I assume, and that's a lot more than some of the other projects that are moving forward on a density bonus project basis. And so, yeah, I do support the project, but I do encourage you to work on that, because you are going to have issues during plan check.
Thank you, Board Member Simonian. Board Member Welsh?
Thank you, Ms. Chair. I concur largely with my fellow board members here, and I was thinking along the same lines of if you can, the courtyard is nice, but to me, it's more beneficial and useful space if it's at the rear. So if you could somehow tweak things to take a little of that space and move it to the rear, I think that would be helpful. Because I personally think that the solution is actually quite well thought out, because it is at grade. You know, you are actually excavating down a little bit there. You have to keep it flat to the garage. So I think that that's good. I think having the rec room there, right, opening onto it, I think it's great. I think it's going to work exactly as you're intending here, where you have indoor and outdoor space conjoined for the use of the tenants. I think that that will be in hot demand from the people in the building. As far as the caller from Car Drive, I know Car Drive quite well, and yes, the parking on that street is a disaster. So I certainly sympathize with her, but I concur that you are providing, for most of these units, they're going to have 3 parking spaces for the units. So I think that that's, enough, plus the 2 guest parking spaces. I literally, when I did a site visit, I had to park in their driveway. So please forgive me if I blocked anybody for the few minutes that I was there. I also concur about the flat roof design. I quite like it. I don't think it's necessary to introduce sloped roof there. I think it works fine as it is. So I'm in support of the project as with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Welsh. And I concur with my fellow board members. I also agree about the flat roof. I don't think it needs any change. The design is nice and simple and clean and well thought out. And of course, I concur with all the comments about the common open space. So if we can get those addressed and that would be it. I think in support of the project with the conditions minus the roof change. Do we have a motion?
We're going to keep the 4 staff conditions. We're going to get rid of the consideration about the sloped roof. We won't make a condition about code compliance because that's implied, but we'll definitely focus on that because we have several places to work with the applicant to make sure everything's working and the numbers are clear.
Okay, great.
So moved.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Board Member Welch and a second by Board Member Simonian. In terms of a roll call, Board Member Lakarov,
Yes.
Board Member Welch,
Yes.
Board Member Simonian,
Yes.
and Chair Chagayan.
Yes,
The motion passes 4-0. Thank you.
thank you.
Babakani for the project located at 775 Ridge Drive.
Hello?
Oh, and I apologize, this is the part where we.
Thank you. Good evening, design review board members, staff, and audience. My tonight's case, design review case number PDR 000454-2022 is for a property located at 775 Ridge Drive. The project site is zone R1R, floor area ratio District 2, which stands for Restricted Residential Zone for Floor Area Ratio District 2. The lot is 10,528 square foot hillside. It is an interior lot, and it slopes down toward the rear. The average current slope of the lot is 36%, approximately. The lot is irregular in shape, and it's located on the west side of Ridge Drive. The lot was developed in 1962 with an existing 1,352 square foot one-story house with an attached two-car garage. The project is proposing to demolish the existing house and to build a new two-story, 3,452 square foot house and a new attached two-car garage, essentially in the same location of the existing two-car garage. The existing house doesn't appear to be eligible for listing on the Glendale Register of Historic Resources. Therefore, it's not considered a historic resource under CEQA. On this slide, you can see the house, the existing house with the story pools that shows the layout of the proposed two-story house. These pictures are from the rear of the house, looking southwest and also northeast. In terms of the site planning of this project, site planning is similar to the neighboring properties, and it's appropriate to the site because the project will not basically change in the site planning significantly, as the new two-story house with the attached two-car garage will be built on the same location of the existing house. A part of the minor alteration to the site is extension of the building pad toward the rear for construction of a new pool and to give more open space to the resident at the rear. According to the architect of the project involves approximately 25 cubic yards fill and 83 cubic yards of export. With all this alteration, which are minimal for the site will still have 44% of the ungraded open space. The project is proposing a new retaining wall to the north. You can see in the red box to the north of the property. This is going to be a plaster CMU retaining wall. The height will be 5 feet, which is meeting the zoning code requirement. There is also an existing retaining wall at the front of the house with 5 feet in height and also plastered CMU wall, which is also meeting the zoning code requirements. As I mentioned, there's no change to the location of the driveway and the location of the garage. However, some modifications to the driveway slope and driveway opening are proposed in order to meet the Public Works Engineering Division requirement. Planning staff, however, is recommending a condition for approval requiring the driveway material to be decorative and also architecturally to be consistent with the proposed style of the house. There is no indigenous protected tree on the lot or within the 20 feet of the lot. Some of the existing landscaping are going to remain, including palm trees, and the new drought-tolerant landscape plan is complementary to the building design and surrounding. For the mass and scale of this project, the overall mass and scale of this contemporary modern architectural style house are appropriately broken up by setbacks in the 4 elevations of this project. And also the mass and scale fit the neighborhood's 1- and 2-story homes and also meet the hillside design guidelines. Therefore, staff believes the mass and scale of this project are appropriate to the site and relate to the neighborhood context. I also should mention that the house is not fully visible from the street because it is situated below the street level, and some point it is 12 feet below the street level. Here you can see the first floor plan, second floor plan, and roof plan of the project. As you see, the proposed flat roofs are appropriate to the style and has, the flat roof have the appropriate proportions, which help avoid a sense of monumentality for this two-story building. The windows from the public rooms for this house, which are mainly located at the first floor, also the proposed terrace at the second floor up from the bedroom, and also the roof deck are not overlooking neighboring properties. They have a significant distance from the neighboring houses. And because of the site topography and also because of the existing and proposed landscaping buffer, the project doesn't create privacy conflict with the neighboring houses. In this slide, you can see the front elevation of the house. Here is the rear elevation of the house. And you can see the extension of the open space at the rear of the house is well integrated into the natural topography, which basically helps the landform alterations. There's going to be also a new pool at the rear open space here. I have the side elevations of this proposed house on this slide. And these are the section drawing. You can see the mass and the scale of the two-story house in the section drawing, basically using the same existing flat pad of the existing house. The overall height of the building is going to be 30 feet, which is 2 feet less than what is required or what is the limit for houses in this zone. Here is another section drawing from north to south. For the design and details of this project, the project used high-quality materials for the exterior finishes. The materials are consistent with the proposed contemporary modern architectural style. Some of the exterior materials include smooth cement, plaster wall finish, stone tiles, horizontal composite, wood siding, and metal clad canopy, metal railing, and metal door and gates. Staff recommends a condition for the color of the plaster, which is proposed to be ivory. Staff is recommending the color to be replaced with a more natural color to be consistent with the Hillside Design Guidelines and complement the overall design in this project. Also, there is a condition of approval recommended by staff for the light fixture of this project, for the location to be specified on the drawing. The proposed fenestration in this project complements the architectural design and features recessed dark color fiberglass window with combination of casement, sliding, and fixed or picture windows without exterior seal and trim. In the conclusion, staff recommends approval for this project with 3 conditions that I mentioned: for the driveway to have decorative paver, for the light fixture to be shown on the drawing, and also for the color of the plaster finish on the exterior wall to be changed to be more natural and consistent with the Hillside Design Guidelines. Before I conclude, I should mention that staff didn't receive any public comments for this project, and that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Babakani. Do we have any questions for staff?
No.
Nope. Okay.
I guess I did have one. So there's portions of the house that cantilever over, like on the right-hand side of the house. Does staff have any opinions on that cantilevering aspect?
No. I'm
cantilever towards the street?
It's just, it's almost as though the second floor is, the entire mass of it would fit neatly on top of the first floor, except it's been shifted over like a few feet, including cantilevering out the
Like over
right-hand
that
side.
outdoor shower?
Yeah,
There's a large cantilever on the, looking from the street on the right side, going to the
Correct, yes.
uphill
yeah,
side,
to the uphill
section.
side, yes.
Well, we didn't really, I'll just be honest, we didn't focus on that
Okay.
because it's on this manufactured pad and the elevations between the houses are
Right.
such. It's not the same issue when we're on flat land,
Okay,
but
okay,
it didn't look like a big issue to us, but
okay,
if it is, they'll let us know.
okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right, thank you. So I guess we will invite Mr. Zorabians up. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the Design Review Board. My name is Hamlet Zorabians, and I'm the project architect. And my address is, for the record, 3467 Ocean View Boulevard, Suite B, in Glendale, 91208. In the interest of time, I'm just going to read a few the notes that I've already written. So if you will allow me to just read it very short, keep it very short. There are very few points that are really I'm highlighting, which is basically resonates whatever is in the staff report. And I should say that they've done a very thorough job. We've been working on this project for a while. So the existing property is very unique in that the graded pad is below the street level for the most part. This made the existing house location the most appropriate for the site. So from the very beginning, we intended to keep and remodel the existing first floor and add a second story to accommodate the family needs. So the existing ground floor remains at the same existing location and orientation. City complies with the setback requirements with the exception of the south interior setback, for which we have moved the existing garage, nor to increase the existing interior setback from 6 to 10, which is required. So actually, the existing setback used to be 6 feet from the property line, which we have, even then, we have increased it to 10 feet during the process of designing and, in the planning department. The existing driveway location and the curb cut remains the same, and it's in keeping with an existing neighborhood pattern. The proposed second floor is set back on the east side from the front facade. The proposed flat roof helps reducing the overall building height. The second floor overhang at the rear, coupled with the partial canopy, creates the covered loggia at the backyard. An infinity edge swimming pool is planned at the backyard facing the view, which is placed at the edge of the slope for balanced grading. The building is designed in contemporary modern style with high quality finished materials such as Trespa seamless composite wood siding, which I have a sample of it here, which is not just what you see normally, that this is a pretty high quality material. Honed basalt stone tiles and smooth finished plaster, which are placed in the alternating walls. All four sides of the house are articulated using contemporary modern volumes and elements. Horizontal metal clad canopies are introduced to break the vertical elements. Modern plain glass panel fiberglass windows are recessed within the exterior walls for better definition. Horizontal metal railings matching the color of the material of the canopy fascia, and the trims will serve as an accent color throughout the structure. So we've stayed consistent with everything on all four sides rather than having just deal with one facade. There are three conditions that it's pointed out in the staff report, which we will comply with it. We've already had a conversation with my client, and we will stay with it. On the second point, though, on the second condition, if you will, which deals with the light fixture locations, we already submitted we proposed elevations with the locations of the lights, And we have actually proposed very minimal exterior light fixtures to it and very appropriately locations, because I personally don't like to have a lot of lights outside of the building. I just don't like that. So very appropriately at the entrance, maybe one at the garage, just lighting the pathway, to the house, security reasons, and so on and so forth. The rest of the lighting will be provided by recessed lighting under the canopies, wherever we have. So obviously, we will work with the planning, if you will let us do that, and so we will present, the complete, treatment of the lights accordingly. The exterior color, we have chosen, this color to match and, our exterior finishes. And I stand by it, but if that's the recommendation of the staff, we will work with them to perhaps we can find another, hue with maybe different, color that will be to their likings, but we will work on that. So all these three conditions, we're fine with it. Specifically, the very first one, where we are going with the interlocking pavers for the driveway. I've already spoken to the owner, and we're going to do that. And rest assured that we will choose something that is more appropriate to contemporary design rather than a very, classic material, if you will. So I have nothing else to say. These are some of the highlights of how we have arrived and achieved this project. And so if you have any questions, I'll be here available to answer your questions.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Zorabians. Do we have any questions for the architect? Yes, Mr. Welsh.
Thank you, Mr. Zorabians. One question I had, I'm trying to understand, so the front door looks like it's nested underneath the staircase. Is that correct? Is there a clearance there for the door?
Yeah, we have, that's true, because we have a stair. The front door comes into a vestibule, and where you have an open stair that goes up to the second floor.
Okay.
Where in the interest of minimizing the volume, you need to kind of, superimpose the staircases on top of each other. So since we are using the same pad, and the pad happens to be a very narrow pad, this is not a very wide pad that we are using, and we intend to use that, so as much as possible we are trying to maintain the backyard size and depth. And so we end up like this. So we're going to go up, and then we're going to come to an landing, and then we'll take off and then go up. Mind you that stair, it's necessary to also have the access to the rooftop deck, which is a very small rooftop deck. Nevertheless, you want to have the stair. And in the interest of not creating another volume someplace, we just superimposed on top of each other. So we're using that element as our entrance. But you're right. I mean, we can see that how we are doing that open step. And that's kind of modern because it's very appropriate for modern design.
Okay, so there'll be no risers there, just treads?
Yes,
okay.
open stairs, yes. So it will be as if like more of a, transparent.
Okay.
But I think, to your point, are you saying that you feel like there's no head clearance?
Correct, that's what I'm saying.
It looks like
because
the
it looks
landing
like the landing is like lower than the height of the doors there, so.
Yeah, no, that's why we had actually a section through that. One of the sections shows that we have enough for that. But the thing
I
is
was
that...
looking at this one, A51, and the way the stair is drawn, it looks like it's cutting off the top of a door that's next to it, so.
Yeah, the door being 8 foot, and we will look into that to make sure, obviously.
Right,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
See how tall the owners are.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Any other questions for Mr. Zorabians? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any callers?
Callers.
Okay. So with that, I guess we close the public hearing and move on to deliberations. Mr. Simonian, would you like to lead us off?
Thank you for the great presentation, Ms. Balakani and Mr. Zorabians. Overall, I have a very good understanding of the building. I thought staff did a really good job explaining it. And of course, the architect followed up with some additional information as well. In general, I very much support the project. I don't have any issues. I thought some of the comments that staff had were also, on point. Overall, I appreciate the fact that the pad is not being increased and that you're working with the footprint. Anytime you have a street that's sloping up with a flat pad that's disappearing as you go up the slope, it's hard to design a building to get enough light and ventilation in there. And so, but they've done it, and it's flowing and it's working, and I'm glad that they were able to minimize kind of the encroachment onto the neighbors and with sights and visibility and light and air, and still keep as much of a backyard without really going for a huge home. It's modern, but at the same time, it's not over imposing, which is, I guess, you know, the idea. And so overall, I support the project. I think overall, the architect could work with staff on these items because they're very minor, so I do support the project. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Simonian. Mr. Welsh?
Thank you, Ms. Chair. I concur that the design is lovely. I think you've done a very good job here, as I've come to expect from you, Mr. Zarabian, so I think it's well done. I think that your comment about the color, you know, I mean, I think having brought the wood elements in there, the color, the white color didn't bother me that much, but, you know, I think it could still be potentially toned down a little bit and make it a little bit more earth-tony. But I think that the one thing that concerns me a little bit is how the big mass above the garage, it still seems a little big. And the shifting of the second floor could be better done to step it up the topography a little bit. So that was the only element that sort of was a little jarring to me, is the height of that. And, you know, you could maybe try to reduce the entire height of the house with the floor-to-floor heights. Or I would suggest maybe, you know, if it were my preference, to shrink down the mass of that master closet space, and pull that in a little bit further. There's plenty of space there. I mean, the size of the closets and the master bathroom are enormous. So I think that there's enough space that you could squeeze that down a little bit and pull that second story mass over just a little bit more, so that there's a little bit more of a step in that, on that left side of the house. I think that would be better for stepping up the topography. But generally speaking, I think the design is very well done. I think you've done an excellent job here. So that would be my only small criticism there. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Welsh. Ms. Lockeroff?
Yeah, so I think it's a beautiful design. I strongly support it. I'm in agreement with my colleagues here. I think in regards to the conditions, I concur with most of them. The color, I do think is consistent with the modern design, though, and so I do like it quite a bit as is. Maybe it could be a consideration rather than a condition, but we can talk about that. I would say I would like to see, you're mentioning this mass, and I would love to see, can you pull up the 3D view of that mass that we're just discussing? And also, while you're getting that, I'll go through my other comments. I appreciate your comment on how you considered all the sides of the home, and that comes through. Yes. Great materials being used. So overall, I support it. I just would love to look at that condition. Can you elaborate on which portion?
Yeah, it was just that left side, you know, and from a balance perspective, I think the design works. It's just that when I went to the site and saw the poles, they were quite tall. Mm-hmm. And what struck me is that, you know, there is a step there, you know, to follow the topography, but is it enough? Could it be a little bit more? And that was the only thing, is that I was thinking maybe it could be squeezed down a little bit more. And when I looked at the floor plans, there's plenty of space there, you know, and I know it's not our purview to be designing the interior of the house, but it's not going to be that big of a hardship to rework that, to push that second floor wall in a few more feet.
Although the interesting thing is the hand-drawn rendering here is a lot softer than than the architectural drawings, the rendering in the package as far as the elevations are concerned. It nestles quite nicely. The composition, I think, is so different in this hand-drawn depiction versus the color elevations that we have.
I concur, yes.
Apologies. Again, this is.
Great. That concluded your comments then?
Yes, that's the end of my comments. Thank you.
All right. Okay.
There's the
Oh,
elevation.
there, that's the elevation I think he was referring to.
Mhm.
Because the rendering kind
It
of gives it
reads-
that
yeah,
three-dimensionality
yeah.
versus the two-dimensional.
And the
look.
pencil drawing makes it
Yeah.
all very soft,
Yeah.
no touch.
Right.
I see what you're saying.
Okay. And I guess that leaves me, and I am also in support of this project. It's very beautifully designed. I concur that the white, I think, works well with the design, or ivory, I should say. So that didn't bother me too much. And then the rear elevation, seeing that cantilever, is a little fun, and I don't mind it at all. So I am in support of the project. Beautiful materials and nicely done. Thank you. Does anybody want to make a motion?
First question, I have a couple
Questions.
of questions.
Yes.
One is, well, is there concurrence on shifting the volume? And then Mr. Welsh also mentioned the height, but we didn't follow through on that. So is that a one, both, or is there
I
concurrence?
see what you're referring to, but it doesn't bother me.
Okay.
You know, I think overall, that rendering as depicted and the way they're trying to really kind of minimize their footprint onto the site, without as big a homes as we typically see, I'm in support of it. It doesn't bother me as much. Perhaps a consideration. if you-
Okay.
I think as a consideration, it would be
Okay.
good too.
Fair enough.
Okay, so we'll make that a consideration to shift the volume in.
Yeah.
A couple of feet, you mentioned, or?
Yeah, some portion, yes, because I wouldn't want to break up the overall quality of the structure here, because I think it is well balanced.
Right.
So I wouldn't want to affect
narrow-
balance it too much, you know?
Too narrow, look taller. so-
Right, exactly.
Okay, so we'll find a proportional, well, if it's a consideration, if the owner decides to go there, we'll work with them on that. My other question is more of a comment. The color issue is from the Hillside Design Guidelines, which are guidelines. So on a case-by-case basis, the board may say, we support the use of this brighter, whiter color in this case. It would be helpful for us if you gave reasons for that. And not that every case, no decisions you make are precedential for every other case, but this is a common kind of thing that's happening, especially in this new black and white crazy world that we're living in, so.
To me, it's the use of the wood material, because there was a good balance of the whites with the wood material, and the wood material is much more of a natural color. So I think that is what, to me, made it work as a whole composition.
So that's
I would agree, yes.
okay, so we will publicly state that in this case, the white color is acceptable because of the balance with the darker colors, the wood, and I imagine also the stone cladding.
Correct.
It's not overwhelming in any way.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
Well, then, I move to approve the project with staff's conditions, except the keeping the color of the facade as proposed with the explanation as illustrated, and adding a consideration that Mr. Welsh has brought forward.
I second the motion.
So this is a roll call. Board Member Simonian,
Yes?
Board Member Welch,
Yes.
Board Member Kasakian is absent, Chair Chikayan,
Yes?
and Board Member Lakarev.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Motion passes.
Thank you.
And Madam Chair?
Oh,
as-
yes.
As of today, I do have a conflict that I need to accuse myself of this next case, and so best of luck. I'm glad there is a quorum.
Yes. Thank you. While Mr. Simonian needs to recuse himself, we're going to take a 2-minute break. Thank you.
back on with the Design Review
Are we?
Board. Mr. Kiesel, yes, you have the last item on tonight's agenda.
All right,
Please.
thank you. Good evening, members of the board. The next and last item this evening is a proposal to construct a new 3-story, 2,495 square foot house and an attached garage, 2 cars. That case number is PDR 000-350-2022. The residence is proposed sort of on the north side of Greenwich Road on a vacant 9,719 square foot lot. That lot is zoned R1R with a floor area ratio District 2. The board initially heard or reviewed the project in October of 2021, where it returned the project for redesign with 9 conditions. Cited concerns at that time related to making the residence better integrate with the topography, as well as the preservation of more of the on-site oak trees. Staff is recommending approval of the current project with some conditions. I'm going to quickly go through my PowerPoint now and then reference specific slides in the rest of my presentation. So the location, Greenwich Road is a curvy street, sort of east of Chevy Chase Drive, and the site is highlighted in red. Aerial view from Google. The red spot is the site. This is the site plan. You see the property lines, and then the red outline shows the outline of the house, the entire house. Front elevation looking from Greenwich. The rear elevation, one of the big changes that occurred, and I'll mention it again, is the elimination of the rear retaining wall. Now the rear wall of the house is an impact wall. So the rear elevation is mostly the impact wall. The northeast elevation, one of the sides of the house, and then the southwest elevation, another side. Couple renderings. The garage floor plan, basically this level of the house is just the garage. The first floor plan expands a little bit, includes living room, dining room, kitchen. And then the second floor plan, which contains 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. Roof plan, some sections here and here. Landscape plans. Material board. Couple on-site photos taken from the street. And then the conditions of approval. So let me go back. So site planning for the project, staff believes is generally acceptable. Retaining walls initially proposed at the rear and side elevations of the residence have been eliminated. And that's probably best shown in the mid-level, the first floor and second floor plan slides. You'll note that there is no rear retaining wall. Also, and I don't have slides on this, but it was in your packet, there were a series of retaining walls on the right side of the house. Those have also been eliminated. The previous plans were in your packet.
Mm-hmm.
The front-loaded garage is appropriate for the site and for the surrounding area. And then, as conditioned, the retaining walls shall be restudied to better follow the grade instead of being stepped. And this is a kind of a holdover from previous concerns you expressed in October, or in the last time you saw the project. Best illustrated on some of the elevations, you see the walls kind of stepping as opposed to more following the topography. The proposed condition, or as I mentioned, relates to the previous concerns you had. Relating to oak trees, staff is suggesting a condition to the landscape plans that they be modified to be consistent with the oak tree mitigation plans suggested by the urban forester. These are the landscape plans as proposed. As I mentioned, the staff report more completely. There are 5 oak trees that are proposing to be removed, one of which is already removed due to the weather. So 4 additional trees are proposed to be removed. The urban forester is suggesting in their mitigation plan that 7 oak trees be provided to sub out for the 5 trees that are being removed. And they're suggesting that 2 36-inch box trees be installed, planted in the front yard, and the remaining 5 in the rear yard being 24-inch box. So one of the conditions staff is suggesting is to modify the landscape plans to address the additional oak trees being required by urban forester. Mass and scale of the project is generally appropriate with one suggested condition. Let me go to the front elevation. Okay. The building form, staff believes, emphasizes both verticality as well as horizontality, which helps to diminish the mass and scale of the building. The residence, or the entrance to the residence is not monumental, but you can tell from the front elevation where it is. And the sort of the shallow pitched roof is consistent with the Spanish style design of the residence. Staff does recommend that the 3rd floor balcony treatment be restudied to reinforce the step backs of the house that mimic the upslope terrain. And this condition is referring to the 3rd floor balcony above the garage with the roof and then the columns and then the solid, for the most part, the solid railings. The actual facade of the house steps back, but those features of the covered balcony kind of mitigate the step back. So we're suggesting some restudying of that area to reemphasize the stepping back of the house consistent with the terrain. The design and detailing of the proposed residence is also generally appropriate. The materials proposed reinforce the Spanish Revival style. Trash is screened adjacent to the driveway. It's actually to the left of the driveway in the area below the staircase and landing. There are several balconies on the project. Those, since they're oriented toward the street, are not going to pose any privacy issues. Staff is suggesting that proposed lighting fixtures be revised to complement the change in style to the Spanish Revival style. As mentioned, this project was initially heard in October of 2021. The project was returned for redesign with 9 conditions. These conditions are included in the staff report and how the applicant altered the design to address those conditions. I can go over them if you'd like. Otherwise, I will conclude my presentation.
Do you need Mr. Kiesel to go over the previous conditions?
I don't think.
I might, maybe even how they were addressed
Yes.
more specifically.
I think 'cause
It
we
would be-
were
I
here.
wasn't on the board at the time, so I'd love to hear how.
Sure. So the first condition was, and this is in the staff report in your packets. Restudy the design of the residence, including its size and the feasibility of split-level design in order to better integrate it with the topography and preserve more of the existing oak trees. Reduce the size of the house by a minimum of 10%. So the applicant did not utilize a split-level design. It's more of a traditional three-story. The house size is reduced by about 9%, not quite 10%. The house has shifted, though, so that it does better integrate with the topography. The whole house has been shifted, in this case, to the left. I guess that would be kind of northwest, to protect some of the oak trees in the southeast corner of the site. And the third floor is really the longest floor, and it's pushed way back. So there have been some sort of modifications to the overall site plan to address those concerns. Condition 2 was revise the seemingly inadequate oak tree mitigation plan. Currently, for every one protected tree that is proposed for removal, one tree is replaced. A revised mitigation plan shall increase the new tree ratio and consider larger tree sizes for planting. The locations of the trees shall be shown on the landscape plans. So I believe there were 8 trees proposed for removal in the previous design. That has been reduced to 5, including the one that was downed because of the weather. For the 5, the urban forester is requesting 7 be planted. As I mentioned in the presentation, 2 in the front will be 36-inch box. The rear trees will be 24-inch box, and I think previously they were proposing 15-gallon and 24-inch box. Restudy the colors of the residence using earth tone colors incorporated to blend with the hillside. The previous house was more of a contemporary style. It has changed to more of a Spanish Revival style. The hacienda paint color proposed is consistent with this style, and I think for the most part blends with the hillside. The windows that are being proposed are dark brown. That's a hillside color. That's all I have to say about that. Trying to paraphrase what I wrote. Reduce the rectilinear and boxy design of the residence through better articulation as a means to soften the overall appearance. The house still is kind of a rectangle. But as I mentioned before, the second and third, in particular levels, have been pushed back, and sort of the third level sort of elongated so that it doesn't read as kind of a simple rectangle. That's probably best illustrated on the left-hand side of the drawing, where you can see the third floor balcony is really, pushed back. That also allows for the preservation of oak trees in that area. The 5th condition, restudy the retaining walls at the right side of the driveway and street frontage Use low garden walls if necessary with subsequent wall setback 5 feet. And any additional retaining walls should closely follow the adjacent grade rather than stepping. And I went over this briefly in the presentation. The rear retaining wall and the eastern retaining walls have been eliminated with the current project. There are not any retaining walls on the side of the house, on the left side of the house anymore, whereas previously there was a small series of them. Retaining walls within the front yard are at a similar configuration and height, it appears, from the previous proposal, taking into account the altered garage location. The garage was shifted to the right again to preserve more of those oak trees at the front of the site. But basically, the locations of those walls have remained very similar, taking into the garage relocation. A condition of approval that we're suggesting, that staff is suggesting, is to incorporate the low garden walls adjacent to the street frontage with any necessary retaining wall set back 5 feet. And also a condition will be added to incorporate sloped retaining walls to better conform with the adjacent topography. And those are sort of remnant conditions from the previous submittal. Condition 6, reduce the wall heights adjacent to the stairs as much as possible and instead provide open railings. Again, it appears that the wall heights adjacent to the stairs continue to step, should be restudied to incorporate open railings that were requested from this condition. Amend the landscape plans to include trailing plants adjacent to retaining walls to soften the appearance of these walls. Landscape plans have been amended to include violet trumpet vines adjacent to the retaining walls, and those vines will soften the appearance of these walls. The 8th condition, terminate all finished material on the facade at inside corners or other appropriate junctures. As I mentioned before, this is now more of a Spanish Revival design, pretty much all stucco aside from some accent wood features. And so this condition really isn't relevant at this point. And then finally, restudy the design of the interlocking pavers and the light fixture details to be more contemporary, to be more complementary to the contemporary style residence. Again, the style of the residence has changed. The proposed interlocking pavers are appropriate to this design. Staff is suggesting that the applicants re-look at the lighting so that becomes more consistent with the current style of the residence. So those were the conditions of the previous project and how they have been addressed in the present project. There are 4 conditions that I can go over real quick. The first condition, landscape plans be amended to address the oak tree mitigation plan. The second, restudy the proposed retaining walls to include open railings adjacent to the stairs and sloped walls. The third, restudy the 3rd floor balcony treatment to reduce the appearance of mass and reinforce the stepping back of the house. And then finally, restudy the proposed light fixtures. So that concludes what I have to say. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Great, thank you. Do we have any questions for staff? No. No? Okay, thank you. And with that, we will call up Mr. Hagopian, the applicant.
Oh, you know what? Before he comes, well, as he comes up, I do want to mention we did get one letter today regarding the project, a letter of concern that was emailed to you. Basically, in summary, a concern about privacy.
From the adjacent neighbor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, I do have one question. I think
Sure.
there was a letter regarding the oak trees, I think, as well, just that they didn't think they were in the past, they weren't able to build on the site because of the trees, or there was some kind of precedent, but I don't know if that's accurate. Am I misremembering that? Maybe
I
I'm-
don't recall that
Okay, maybe I'm
letter.
remembering something else.
Yeah.
Okay.
There may have been concerns at the previous.
I think the letter referenced that they had been told by their realtor when they bought
Oh,
the
it's
house.
the realtor,
that
okay.
That the property next door was unbuildable because of all the oaks.
Okay.
So
There was no city precedent to that statement, then it was.
No.
That's
Well,
right.
there
Okay,
is a
great.
pr-
I
there is
mean,
an
I mean,
ordinance
there is an
protecting
ordinance.
oak trees, yes,
Correct,
but I
correct,
think that's the
but
reference to.
right, but not a project. Thank you.
Hello. Good evening.
Edward Hagobian. My address is 220 South Kenwood Street, Suite 210, Glendale 91205. The main change was caused, the biggest oak tree in this property was number 13, which was on the back of the house. Previous design was modern, and we had a backyard, and in a distance of 15 feet, we had this 15-foot high retaining wall to create a backyard. And because of, we tried to stay away from that, we totally changed the design. We completely eliminate that retaining wall, but made a back wall of the house as an impact wall. And because of that, because a portion of that high retaining wall was visible from the street, we changed the roofs from flat to pitch roof to hide those walls, as you can see in the roof plan. With all these efforts that we made to preserve that oak number 13, it fell down with this recent rains. If I knew that this will happen, maybe we could have designed differently, but we had already submitted the plans to the city. I will do all these recommendations that Roger has recommended to make the retaining walls to be in a slope. I don't like it because then we have to cut the blocks while we can go straight block and straight and have a cap on top of it. Otherwise, we will have many blocks that will be cut. You know, cutting a block is not going to happen very smooth cut because it will break, it will chips. However, if that's what we have to do, we will do it. We are not going to stucco the retaining walls because we are not allowed to do that. In the stucco, we can hide all these imperfections, but if it's block exposed, then we have to cut it then. That is so why we changed from the modern contemporary style to the Spanish style, and this is a difficult lot to work, not only because of the oak trees were in the front of the property, which we have to enter to the property, but because narrow frontage opens up, that narrowness was making it difficult for us to design the best of this lot that we could do. I think we spent a lot of time. It went a year and a half time we spent to all kinds of options to see how we can find solutions for the existing hurdles and the problems. Just today, Roger gave me a letter from the neighbor complaining that we are building a house there. Our house is 2,400 something. Now I want to read for you on this list of the survey, the size of the houses in this street. We have the corner that is in Chevy Chase and Greenwich, which it is 4,686 square foot. Now let's say this is in Chevy Chase, but in Greenwich, house at 2931 is 3,422 square foot. The one on 2920 is 3,089 square foot. The house in 2946 is 3,211. 2952 is 3,740. And the biggest is 2958, 4,110 square foot house. So if our neighbor is complaining that we are building a house, yes, during the construction there will be dust, there will be noise, there will be some inconveniences, but these are the nature of constructing a house. So, by the way, I was there on the site and I saw that one or two more oak trees, their roots are very close to the slope and some roots are exposed, and who knows what will happen if this rain continues. However, I see that recommendation is to have 7 oak trees. The lot is a little bit too small to have these 7 oak trees, but if that's the recommendation, fine. If you think that there is enough space to install 7 oak trees, we'll do it. Maybe I should also talk about the material of the roof. This material has been used in city of Glendale for many years, maybe 67 years. I want a sample of it here that I want to show it to you. This looks like a Spanish style because the edge is thicker. Now, the weight of this is about 130 pounds per square. Square is 10 by 10 feet. 130 pounds. Clay tile is 1,200 pounds per square. Yeah, that's about almost 10 times of the weight. This is lifetime guaranteed, and there is a street in the Glendale, Nibley Park, I believe. The next to that, there's a street that in the 1960s, there have been many houses that are built and still is there. It looks very clean and nice, like it's built last year. And this is a good material for the weight of it, especially. Of course, by changing the design, we have less grading, smaller house, more compact house, and minimum for a family to be able to have a house that is functioning. Other than that, I don't remember anything else to talk to. If you have any questions, I'll be ready to.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Hagopian?
By the way, we have also the round ones, like Spanish style of this material. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess I'll start with that question. Are you proposing this flat version or the rounded one?
Whichever you think you recommend, we'll do it. This one is also nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We have done some others with the round shape, like Spanish round shaped tiles, yes.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
I do have just in terms of the materials, did you consider when you, having a different material at the base at all of the home? You know, like, I don't know, to differentiate the different levels a little bit? Is there something that you thought about or tried?
Whenever the construction is concrete block, we use concrete block. After when it goes above the dirt, then we use wood, so we can make the garage and the sides of the house, wherever it's it comes out of the dirt, we can make it concrete block of score face concrete blocks, yes.
Got it. To clarify, I'm referencing the finished material of the stucco on the front facade. Just wondering if, you know, the garage level,
Yeah.
if you considered cladding it with anything, or if you investigated.
We can do it, yes.
Okay. And the beams that are above the garage opening, are those structural in any way coming out, or is it more aesthetic?
They are also structural.
They're also structural, okay. And then third question is, in regards to staff's comments regarding lightening the railing on that third floor, do you have any thoughts on that, or in terms of your
Wherever
design?
we have the stairs that on both sides there's a dirt, we have to have it concrete. Wherever it meets the dirt and finishes there, we can put the railing on top of it, yes.
I believe, my understanding was it was in regards to the balcony railing,
Correct,
third
yeah.
floor, yeah.
I think Ms. Lockeroff's question
Yes,
was
if
regard
you
to.
mean that balcony on the left side, we can make it railing, or we can make it like roof tiles that creates a window size horizontal thing that is more Spanish rather than just railing.
That's a great idea, too. I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Welsh?
No,
No questions. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hagopian. Do we have any callers?
I don't see any at this point, but.
You were looking for it, too?
No callers.
No callers?
Confirmed.
Okay. If there are no callers, I think we can close the public hearing for our deliberation. Oh, okay. Oh, not colors, sorry, callers. Like if anyone's on the phone.
Yes.
Mr. Welsh, would you like to kick us off?
well, should we allow the one who didn't hear the case before to go first?
Go
or-
first? Yeah, how would you prefer it?
Oh, no, I would love for you to, just because you
Okay.
did hear it, so you have more history.
That was my,
That's,
that
yeah,
was my thinking, but.
Fine. Thank you, Mr. Kiesel. Thank you, Mr. Hagopian. I think that it's definitely, addressed a lot of the conditions that we put forward, I think it has shrunk down in size. I think that there's been more attention paid to trying to preserve the oak trees. I noticed in particular removing that backyard space, was a big change, and I recognize that. It really shrunk down the whole footprint of the property and pushed it over so that you preserve some of the oaks on the right-hand side. So, I appreciate that effort. I think that's the conditions that Mr. Kiesel has put forward are really pretty spot on. I think that's the thing that really did stick out at me is that front wall in front of the garage there that goes straight up to those balconies, and then the columns up to the roof, and then the roof sticking out. I think that's where there's some scope here for adjusting that in alignment with Mr. Kiesel's recommendations to restudy that, because I do think that's a little bit in your face. I would also recommend, although I don't know that we need to make any condition about this, but I think that the front door should probably be where that window is that faces the front. I think you have an opportunity there to do an interesting treatment to emphasize that front door, because from the front facade, it's really not visible. I mean, as you're coming up Greenwich, maybe it's a little visible, but there's plants there and everything like that. I think it would be a better location to be where that window is, entering straight into the facade. But I don't know. I'll hear what other people say. And I think the Spanish style generally is fine. I mean, I live in a Spanish style house, so I love Spanish style designs. Not as sure about these roof tiles. I think I'd like to hear what other people think. Maybe if there's a Spanish version that might be better. But I do recognize that true, barrel tile, clay tiles are very heavy, very expensive, difficult to keep maintained. So, and getting onto a roof like that in this property like this would be probably a big challenge. So I think that's how we do the balcony treatments. I think that we definitely should be talking about that, removing some of those walls. If we do this sort of, as Mr. Hagobian said, the little barrel tile cutout things, to create, inset sections, that might be interesting. I might be okay with just adopting more like traditional wood type railings, and if we keep the columns, which I don't think that we probably should, but if we do keep them, I would think that they should be more in the brown color, like to match the windows trims and stuff like that. The white is kind of jarring to me. I think it doesn't quite work. So I think that if we do keep elements of trim like that, I'd prefer it to be in the dark brown as the window colors. But aside from that, I mean, I'm okay with moving it forward with conditions. I think that's the applicant has done, what they needed to do in terms of addressing the requirements. So I think that we can just, work with some conditions here to be able to move it forward. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Welch. Ms. Lockeroff.
I concur for the most part. I think you've minimized where this is located on the site, to protect the oak trees, and I really appreciate that. I do think that there are some conditions that we need to talk through in regards to, like you said, the balcony railing. I do agree with making a modification to that, and it does feel a bit heavy, but it has the layout has a great potential to not feel heavy. So I think it's some simple things like I mentioned, maybe adding some cladding on that first level that'll break down the massing a little bit. I actually would love it to be a condition, even if we can talk about it, that front door location. It feels like too many windows. I love windows, but it would be nice to have a little asymmetry and something else there. Where we're talking about for that door in particular, is kind of this perfect square, which doesn't feel consistent design-wise with the aesthetic of the rest of the home. So, and I think that, addressing that by putting in a door there and then the railing above being addressed, the combination of that, I think can make it to solve that area. Let's see what else. The retaining wall, I do agree though with sloping it. I would just say that would, I do think it will improve the visual. I get that it's not as crisp of a cut, but I do think it'll look good. So I support that condition. And let's see what else. I agree with the condition of either changing the column colors, minimizing them in some way, or removing them altogether. Because I'm looking at the detailing, for instance, of the windows. It's a more minimal Spanish style, and those stand out to me as being more ornate. That it doesn't really, it's not as consistent design-wise. And that's it for me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Overall, great work getting it to, save all those oak trees. So
Yep.
thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I am basically in agreement with my fellow board members. I think your new proposed design has come a long way from what you originally showed us. So I appreciate that, and I thank you for taking the time and effort to revise the design, which I hope you'd be even more happy with the current proposal. The front door location, I totally agree with that. I think it needs it for the front facade. And with that, I think the style needs to change, because currently it appears it's glass doors with decorative metal. Like a solid wood door with maybe a small, glass at the top would be much nicer and fitting. Absolutely agree that the columns need to be, I think, reduced in size, and also just eliminate those bases. You don't need those heavy bases up on the second level. If you can just simplify the columns, make them a little bit thinner, and do not make them white. I agree, it needs to be more in the brown color. I think it would look a lot nicer. Eliminate those square holes in that balcony, and I think we can achieve that if we're saying get rid of the solid and change it to railing. That would help sort of lift the heaviness up on that third level and help with that overall bulk and mass. I don't mind the suggestion of, putting different material at the bottom. I think that'll help break this up as well, because it is, at the end of the day, 3 stories. So it's pretty hard to make that go away. But these small details, I think, will help. And I think that is the extent of my comments.
What do we think, generally speaking, about the roof above that balcony on the center portion there, where that it calls for the need for the columns?
Currently, it is overhanging.
So you have the one on the left and the one on the right of the house that are uncovered, but the one in the center there has that full porch roof form above it.
And looking at the perspective view, let's see what sheet is. This one, I think it's helpful.
8.1?
Yeah. I do like it helps to provide some variation, but it does increase the mass. So,
I mean, I suppose if we were to simplify the beams, have them brown so that they fade more into the background there, have it more open railings across there.
Yeah.
So maybe the beams actually do come all the way down, but they don't have these sort of bases on them. It's just straight,
No bases,
simple
straight, yeah.
beams.
And
Columns.
originally, when I looked at the rendering, it appeared like it was an ornate sort of capital, but it's really just wood beams, right? So.
The rendering shows at the top of the columns, there's some corbels.
Corbels, right.
That are appropriate to the style.
Right.
And what I'm not sure is if there's an expressed beam across the top of that.
It looks like there is.
Yeah, that would make sense with the columns, because that was one of the questions I was going to ask. If the columns come down to the floor, and then we have an open railing between them, then simplify the detailing, so there's just maybe a very simple base, but maybe the corbels at the top.
Yeah, that would probably be okay.
I think that would be fine. Yes.
That makes
I think it'll
sense
go a
for
long
us.
way.
And to be clear, making the railing more transparent would not just be in the central portion, correct? That would be all the way across.
I
That's what
think-
I was thinking. I
yeah.
just wanted to confirm.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, and you could still do something with sort of beams, I mean, for columns in
Right,
there to
right.
help break it up, so
Right.
it's not just straight railing all the way across.
The railings would be
But-
between the columns.
Between columns, yes.
Other question is on the returns going back to the front wall, do you want that to be wall or railing there?
Ooh, I think for me, open would be great. Particularly looking at this perspective view, it'll make it seem like the roof is much lower of that
Yes.
two-story portion that's popping forward. Just that it would help break up the massing.
I would agree.
Okay.
I don't know if this is a consideration, but kind of mimic
Like
the,
mimicking the
yeah,
arch there.
the arch
yeah.
at that
I think
entry.
there's some things you can do at
The
that, at
entry.
the entry where, yeah, that will help it.
Instead of like that
Yeah.
boxed out, if we could
Yeah.
arch
I can-
the opening of the
Right.
entry.
To not mimic, but the garage.
At the landing?
Yeah.
Yeah, at the landing,
correct.
right.
Yeah.
Alternatively, you could have a beam with corbels.
It needs
could do
some
that too.
element,
Yes.
yes,
You
it
could do
needs
that
an
too.
element, yeah.
Yeah.
Do we leave that
Maybe-
open, or do you have a preference?
Yeah, I think just redesign that entry area so that the door is located straight onto the facade, and we adjust the treatment of it to create more Spanish-style elements.
Detail,
Which would be
yes.
either through a segmental arch or through a beam with corner corbels?
Yes.
Yep. Or if Mr. Gobian might have another suggestion, you know, I'll leave that to you guys to work out in working with him.
And then whatever if we do the beam with corbels, then we would do the same treatment at the garage. And if we do the arch, then obviously the garage would stay arched, or?
It doesn't have to be that way. Like you can have the arch on the garage and it.
I'd say it'd be up to their discretion. It's going to be finding a
Okay,
good
so we
balance.
can mix and match
Yeah.
many
Yes.
permutations. there.
As
Okay.
Spanish-style houses do.
Yes.
But I think actually, as you mentioned that, having the beam across there would actually bring elements of those little nubs sticking above the garage. They'll complement those too, so.
Okay, so
The little beam ends sticking out, you know.
so we can go different directions.
Yeah.
The beam ends might actually start looking strange if there's a stone base on this, which would also have some sort of cap, probably in line, I imagine, with the landing.
Right.
So, but it's possible to have stone beams coming out of stonework also.
Yes.
I think it might need to.
So you're okay with the beams if they do cladding at the base?
Yeah, I mean, it could come through the stone.
Yeah.
It could, although
Yeah, it could come through the stone. I think it'd be up to if they wanted to remove them, if once they design it, I'm okay either way.
I'm not sure I think stone cladding is necessary at the lower level.
If we do everything else, yeah, I guess more
the
of a
chair can-
consideration at that point.
You can take a
Yeah.
vote of your colleagues also to see
Right.
what direction.
I think
Okay.
at consideration, I'd be happy with
Consideration is
it.
fine
I think
for me,
there's
yeah.
so many elements that we're altering or recommending be
Right.
Yeah.
viewed. I think it's going to be a combination of those to see what reduces the mass
That's the one
ultimately.
that's designed by
Okay,
committee, right?
Right?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't want to be too
The thing
prescriptive.
though,
Yeah,
as soon as something becomes a consideration, you can presume it's not going to happen.
okay.
That's our experience.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
Okay, that's
So
good to
we'll
know.
make the stone cladding a consideration at the base?
I think as long as the other ones are conditions, I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, and then I can read back what I've heard. I have one other clarification question.
Sure.
Staff, no offense to the applicant, is extremely skeptical about this roofing material. I don't think we've ever approved it. We, in all of our staff reports, we say we're using high-quality materials. This doesn't feel that way. This is a brand-new house, so you could build it to support any weight of roof, but there are alternatives. There's lightweight concrete tiles, that look like Spanish tiles, which seem appropriate on a brand-new house. Even S tiles, which take up less weight than two-piece barrel tiles. are a possibility. The board's approved those in the past on some projects, but the board often prefers to see the two-piece tile, so.
I certainly prefer the two-piece tile.
yeah.
If there's, you know, an available option that the applicant can consider.
I would like that to be
Yeah.
not a consideration, but yeah, something
Okay, so we'll have
that
a
is
condition,
definitely a condition,
two-piece
yeah.
barrel, and any weight, lightweight, concrete versus
Yes.
clay.
Either one is
All
fine.
of those are okay?
Correct.
Mhm. Okay, and you want me to go over the other conditions, just to make sure we're?
Yes,
Yes,
please.
please.
Okay. The front door will be relocated to face the street. It may be wood, may have some glazing, possibly have side lights. Looking at the floor plan, that actually that makes sense when you look at the floor plans, separating the two rooms, so it could be nice. Roof tiles we just discussed. At the third floor, we're going to have full-length columns extending from the lintel to the floor. They will be wood-colored, brown, or whatever square, I imagine, columns. They can have corbels at the top if they like. And then in between them will be wrought iron railings with an open design, but some decoration to kind of follow Spanish.
Something Spanish style, yes. They could be wood, too. It doesn't have to be
No
wrought
base.
iron.
And they could be wood, yeah, I
Okay.
agree.
I'd say wood also, yeah, I agree.
Okay, so the
Yeah.
railing could be wood or iron. Wood usually being a little less transparent, but it's still possible to make that work. Gets harder with the requirements for.
The full
Orange.
range, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
You know. Let's see, the cladding at the lower level will be turned into a consideration. Sorry, these are kind of scattered notes. Style of the door we just discussed, reduce the size of the columns. Well, the square openings on the
Will
current
go
porch
away.
will just go away automatically.
Sorry, so when you spoke about the columns, were you also talking about the railing, or that's another condition?
We'll make
Railing.
that one condition to have columns with
All the
interspersed
way,
with
though.
iron railing
Right.
at the front and the sides.
Okay,
And then we won't even discuss the beams, but we'll know that if they choose to do something different at the base, the commission was open, or the board was open to those not necessarily being there. And then we have the condition to either put an arch matching the garage arch at the entry opening, or a wood lintel with corbels. Possibly also changing the garage opening if they choose, so we have some flexibility in there.
yes.
Keeping in mind the ultimate goal of keeping those areas looking as Spanish style as possible. That's everything I've got.
And then the lighting, I
Oh,
think?
yeah, that
Yes,
plus the staff
plus the staff
conditions.
conditions, okay,
We'll revise the one staff condition about the balcony.
okay. Great.
Sounds good. Well, I move
That's the
to,
one we're gonna redo. Yeah.
we're ready. Did we catch all of them?
I think so.
We ready to
Okay.
move? We
Ready to
it?
move?
I hope so.
So, and you mentioned the roof tiles too, and that.
Yeah, we'll use
Okay,
a
yeah,
two-piece
that's
tile
important,
of
yeah.
possibly lighter weight than clay.
Right, okay. I move to approve with the conditions just outlined.
I'll second.
Okay, a motion was made to approve the project with conditions. This will be a roll call. Ms. Lockroff,
Yes.
Mr. Welsh,
Yes.
and Ms. Chigayan.
Yes,
Great, motion carries 3-0. Thank you.
Okay.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
Anybody want to move to adjourn?
Move we adjourn.
Second.
Third. Good night.
Right.
Thank you.
4 items in less than 3 hours.
That is
I know.